internet.
No, hi Facebook. It's Anya Fernando. I'm a web editor at Adweek, and today we are going to be talking about networking. I know a lot of people hate networking, and we're going to try and make it easier for you. We have a graduate guide up today on the site. You should go check it out. And today we're going to be talking about one of the articles, which is called How to Network Without Being Annoying, because we know it can be super annoying. So if you have comments or questions, leave them in our comment section and we'll go over it afterwards, and check out the link with the article below. So first up, we have the article's author, our associate web editor, Jameson Fleming. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So tell me a little bit about the article.
Okay, so I talked to 6 media professionals in the business and advertising and media, and they basically gave me a whole list of things that you should and should absolutely not do when networking, like don't send mass emails, how to follow up, and so they gave a pretty good idea of how to get a lot out of your connections and hopefully land your first job.
Cool. So I know one of the do's on the list was about Twitter and using it as a networking tool, right?
Yes.
So I know you have some experience with this.
Yeah, so my first job came with CBSSports.com, where they were just trying to hire a social media editor for the first time. It was 2010. The guy making the hire basically tweeted out, what should this position be? I responded. A month later, they said they'd create the position, and I sent the guy a direct message on Twitter of why I'd be the perfect candidate. He loved it. He interviewed me. I had the job 2 weeks later.
That's awesome. Would you recommend that strategy to other people?
Absolutely. So I think generally when you're on Twitter and you want to, use it to try to find a job, you want to follow the people who are actually going to be making the hire. So it's great to follow journalists, but it's better to follow managers, producers, editors, basically anybody who you think might be in charge and might hire you. Yeah. Because if you get your foot in the door with them, it's going to make it a lot easier to find a job someday.
That makes sense. What about using Twitter chats to connect with companies?
Twitter chats can be great because it allows you to interact with people in a much more informal manner, and they'll start following you, you'll follow them back, you can have side conversations. And so basically it's just a way to get familiar with people in the business and make connections. You never know when they're going to have networking events, and it's just a great, real informal way to just meet people. You don't have to send LinkedIn invitations to do it, and you can interact with them at your own free will.
Okay, sounds good. Our social editor, Charles, is watching all of your questions. So if you have any for Jameson now, let us know. Otherwise, we have someone else coming up to also talk about Twitter. Come on up. Thank you, Jameson. This is our production artist, Diana McDougall. Hi, Diana.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. So talk to me about Twitter.
Talk to you about Twitter. So as far as networking is concerned, I started using Twitter as a way to show art that I make online. So I'm a graphic designer. I don't really have that much to say with words, but when there were big events going on, I would make live GIFs, just react how I would normally, but with images on Twitter. That's how I started to get to know more people in the magazine and newspaper industry, and slowly they started to recognize my work, and then it kind of snowballed from there, getting freelance jobs and then real jobs.
So you got actually this job from Twitter, right?
I did. In a roundabout way, yes. I can't see a reality in which I would have gotten this job without Twitter. Mm-hmm. I again was putting my work out there a lot and started to go to more events in person and making more connections that were all Twitter people, like the New York Twitter media. Yeah, New York Twitter. And that's how I met someone who works here at Adweek. I've known him for years, and then when this position that came around that was just perfect for me, he reached out, and then I ended up working here full time. Thanks to
Power of
Twitter.
connections. So how do you turn like a Twitter friend into an IRL, like real friend?
It can
Or
be
connection?
It can be very daunting at first. I remember the first time that I met Twitter people was at a brunch. No one had ever met before.
Uh-huh.
And we were all terrified, but then immediately it turned out fine. So my suggestion would be to not be afraid to slide into someone's DMs. It's
slide
not
in.
just slide in. Like you follow each other, they know that you're a person with a person behind an image.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to reach out to someone and just ask for a coffee or a drink.
Okay.
That's so common that it's
People aren't like weirded out by it.
no, and it's like a respect thing. If you followed someone, they're someone you know, so it doesn't have to be strange. So slide into someone's DMs and just keep an eye out on different conversations going on. Don't feel weird to jump into a conversation. If you're welcome, you'll find out right away. So
That's good to know. Do we have any questions for Diana? No? Yeah?
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much. We have Julia Kim coming up next. She is another production artist. Come on down.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I want to talk to you a little bit about LinkedIn, which one of the don'ts in our article is that you shouldn't send like generic LinkedIn invites. They should be personalized. So I want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, I mean, if it's somebody that you already know, like a friend that I had lunch with yesterday or something like that, I'm not going to write this whole elaborate message. But if it's somebody that doesn't know you that well, or if it's somebody you met after an event, I think it's absolutely critical to personalize a message because how else are they going to remember you? And you want to leave them with a good impression or something that even if maybe something immediate doesn't come up, they'll have, whatever you did in mind. And so that's always a good thing to do.
So how do you use LinkedIn? or do you?
So now that I have a job, I feel like I don't use LinkedIn as much or as often, but I do really like getting updates from what my friends are doing, and if they have a promotion or if they started a new job, I try to congratulate them or send them a message because I think it's nice to always be updated in your network. But I do believe in the power of LinkedIn
Yes.
because someone I know, it's my sister, she's great, but she got her job, an internship and then job through LinkedIn basically. So at her school, she knew there were recruiters coming from this top firm, consulting firm, and so she went ahead and LinkedIn searched everybody that kind of worked in the company and had that position, and then just cold emailed them, I guess. But she personalized each message, and so eventually she got a response, and it was from somebody in San Francisco, and we're based in New York, and so she flew out and met the woman, and even when they met, she was like, "Who are you again? How do I know you?" But she, established a connection, and after that, it was just really impressive to the employers that she went ahead and really let them know basically that she was interested and wanted to work for them. So LinkedIn works.
So that's a pretty aggressive tactic to use. Would that be something that you would do, or what is your networking style?
I'm a little more passive as a person, but I think it's really good, and it kind of just shows that these kinds of things work and they exist for a reason. And I kind of in the future or now would like to have more of a balance in terms of still keeping my personality and not as brave,
Yeah.
but definitely incorporating that approach and not being shy about it, and reaching out to people with that. Yeah.
I get it. Yes, questions for
So,
Julia.
we have a question. Do you have any good conversation starters?
That's just the question.
That's the
right?
question. On
Well-
LinkedIn or in general networking.
I feel like it has to relate. I mean, it depends on who you're talking to, because I feel like if there's something that you actually know about that person, you want to start off with that. I think, or do research and look at what they've done, their work, and if you feel like you found something that you really admire or appreciate or have questions about, I think that's something that could definitely be a conversation starter. It's not just hey, how's it going? You actually have something to say and something behind your purpose.
people love being complimented, so
That
you
too.
know, just going up to them being like, I love your work, you know, I love your company, I'd love to chat. I think that always works.
Yeah.
Like, people always appreciate that.
And I think maybe like also if there's some way that you can relate whatever you're doing to whatever they have done, that's I feel like something that's good for both them and for you. You can establish that kind of connection.
Any other questions for Yulia? You're good to go. All right, thank you so much. Next up, we have Michael Berge. Hello.
Hi, Anya. How are you?
Good. He's our Director of Editorial Partnerships at Adweek. And I want to talk to you about following up. So, you know, I know you get a lot of emails.
Yes, I do. Close to 200 a day.
Oh my God. So there's so much to sift through. So if someone has reached out to you and you haven't reached back, how many emails is appropriate for them to send you? How many phone calls? Like,
Well, for me, my threshold is somewhere between 3 and 5
okay.
emails. And if you follow up by phone and you've already emailed me, I tend to not take that well. But I think the important thing is make sure that your message when you're trying to reach out to someone is relevant. You know, I'm talking through the prism of kind of PR pitches that are sent to me, and it's shocking to me how many PR people don't do their homework to know what I'm about and what my needs are in terms of Adweek. So when you're reaching out to someone for a job, make sure that what you're asking about is relevant to their company or for that person's needs. To me, relevancy is a really important element.
What do you think, what's the difference between being just persistent and then being pushy and just too much?
Well, I wouldn't follow up every day.
Okay.
So anyone who thinks that an everyday follow-up is a good idea, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Because
Okay.
that's the equivalent of flaming someone. I think, you know, about once a week is probably okay, especially when you're job hunting. Anything more than that feels a little bit too pushy, and then if you kind of go every 2 weeks or something, I think you end up kind of being forgotten, or you might forget the trail. And I think one of the don'ts in Jameson's article was, you know, make sure you follow up.
Yeah.
So don't send out, you know, inquiries and then not follow up. So I think it's important to do it. But I would say on a weekly basis, it's good.
Okay. One of the other do's in the article is you could follow up with an update, a question, or a common interest. So would it be weird if someone emailed you and they're like, hey, remember when we talked about baseball? Wasn't that great? Like, is that too personal?
Well, I think that's kind of one of those you have to feel it moments. If you feel like you really connected with that person when you were first networking with them, and you shared some great story about, oh yeah, I was at that baseball game, or I was at Jeter's last baseball game. When it's something truly memorable, I think you could definitely use that kind of connective tissue. But if it's a little bit tenuous, I would err on the side of not doing it, because if it doesn't come across, then people are going to think you're either a little bit weird or you're just pushing it too hard.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
What would you say was your networking style, or is?
Thankfully, I haven't had to network as much lately, but my networking style was always to try to, you know, show up in person and make conversation. I think most people who know me know I'm not too much of a shy, retiring flower, and I can converse with people relatively easily. So I'm all about like find something that connects you with that person. Chat a little bit, and then definitely follow up within 48 to 72 hours. You know, some people say follow up the next day. You could probably use some like dating rules to apply to work, since there's a little bit of a crossover there.
Yeah.
So that's my style.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah. So somebody's curious for Berge, does your follow-up frequency apply for interviews as well?
Ooh, well, you know, interviews, you always have to do the immediate thank you note after an interview, which is something I was really bad at. I don't know how I've stayed employed this long, but so you definitely need to, for interviews, you want to follow up immediately and say, thank you for the time, I thought it was great, I hope you like, you know, what I brought to the table, and let me know if I can be considered. And if you don't hear anything for a while, I would say weekly is still a good frequency to follow up, because a lot of times, you know, I've been in the position of hiring people before, and a lot of times you're so busy with your regular job that when you're looking to fill a position, you can't just devote, it can't be your top priority all the time.
Yeah.
And so prospective employees who are hoping to hear from you have to understand you've got other things to do. So I would say stick with the weekly frequency.
Okay. Any other questions? No?
Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
Anya.
so much.
Cheers.
Next up, we have Marty. Marty Swan is our tech editor, writer. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm definitely not an editor, but, but I do write sometimes.
Writer,
Hey, Facebook.
So I know you go to a lot of events, right?
Yeah.
So one of the do's in the article is going up to speakers at events.
Okay.
So I know you've done that, right?
Yes.
So tell me about that.
So it kind of depends on the event, but if I'm doing a story about something, I might walk up and do an interview afterward. But I think it kind of depends. You don't want to just walk up and say, hey, enjoyed your presentation, because it doesn't necessarily leave you as being memorable to them. Because if it's a long line, if it's a famous person that just spoke, they're going to get a lot of that, and yours isn't going to stand out from anybody else. And so try to think of something that you've done without sounding too, pitchy, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Pitchy with a P, I don't know. But otherwise, just ask them the follow-up question and take a few minutes to make it useful to you and to them as well.
So how would you stand out if everyone seems to be asking like the same question from the speaker? It's not like, it's hard to get a read on them.
Right. Do you mean from on stage or
Yeah.
afterward? Or?
I guess afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. Well, walking up, singing, and dancing.
That's
always
always
helps.
good.
Yeah,
Stand
yeah.
out.
Exactly. Yeah. But if you can't sing, if you can't dance, I think just looking engaging. Don't, even if you're nervous, try not to. I know it sounds super obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many people just are genuinely nice, and they're not expecting, you to be the most brilliant person in the world. And so don't worry about talking to somebody.
And what if you're like intimidated if it's a celebrity that you're going up to? Like, do you have any tips for talking to them?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It actually happened to me one time. I ran into Malcolm Gladwell in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And I love his writing, and I got a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie. But I think tips, just realizing that anybody, no matter if it's a really famous person that's in your field or something else, just they're people too. They have
Yeah.
important jobs, but at the end of the day, a lot of these people are sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, and their work isn't everything. And if you take that out of the equation, it really levels the playing field.
Yeah. So what would you say is your networking style?
My networking style. I would say it's more of maybe it's more like a dandelion, where you have like the little pieces of the. Is it a dandelion? Is that what I'm thinking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You blow it, and things just kind of go in the wind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think for me, it's if I'm in a group of people, just kind of going with the flow, and you might talk to some people for a while, and then the group shifts, and then you talk to a few others, and if it just seems like it's the same group, and if it's kind of a boring conversation, then just kind of float somewhere else. I'll try. It's sometimes tough to kind of fit into a group without feeling like a lurker, but without
Yeah.
breaking it too. And so,
Yeah.
just trying to politely slide in and to engage. Don't just sit there and say nothing,
Yeah.
but try to be in the conversation in some way.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Marty?
I'm used to asking the
I
questions.
know, right? Okay, well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
We're going to bring Jameson back. If anyone else has any networking questions in general, now is the time.
So we have one question from Bradley, and it's pretty simple. What do you do when they don't respond when you're trying to network?
So if they don't respond, there's a couple things you can do. You can either usually wait a week and try to get back to them and make it clear that you know that they're probably a busy person. In this industry, everybody always has things going on, so there's a decent chance that they just saw your email and just never had time to get back to you about it. And if they do eventually get back to you and they acknowledge you're really busy, it's okay to go and ask if there's somebody else in their office or in the field that they think is a better fit to network with. And so a lot of times people will be willing to help you out that way and kind of push you off onto somebody else and connect you with somebody else.
And just don't freak out if you don't hear back immediately. Because I know there's a
Absolutely.
tendency to be like, oh my God, I haven't heard anything, like what's happening? I had an internship at CNN and I had done an interview and I thought it went really well and I didn't hear back for weeks and weeks and I was freaking out. I didn't think I got it and a couple weeks later I got the call that I did. And I was freaking out for no reason. So patience is a virtue,
Gotta have
for
nerves.
sure.
Have
Yeah.
nerves.
Yeah, exactly. Any other questions that we have?
Kenzie would like to know, how much advance should you give someone to schedule an informational interview?
It depends. I mean, for the most part, if you email that person and say, I want to talk about this, and you lay out a few different times, a lot of times if the person has that time free, even if it's that afternoon, they'll go ahead and do it. But as long as you lay out a time, the length amount of time you want to talk to them, and kind of an agenda of what you want to talk about, they're going to be open to just pretty much whenever you can, as long as it fits in their schedule.
Definitely be specific though.
Yeah, absolutely, be specific.
Don't be open-ended. Anything else?
Similar sort of follow-up. What about asking for a tour of a place? Is that a recommended strategy?
None of the people I talked to said that, but I mean, I think if you're already there for a reason. I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for a tour if you're already there for a job interview. You don't want to go in, do a job interview, and then 15 minutes walk out, which happened to me fairly recently. At a previous job interview I had, they gave me an interview, and then you're done.
Yeah, and I think it shows you're interested.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing. I don't think anyone would be like, oh, why do you want to see the place? Like, I think that's probably a normal thing. Yeah.
And what would be your advice on taking a network connection from a base level into establishing a mentorship?
So, sorry, say it again?
Taking a networking connection from sort of an introductory level and establishing a mentorship.
I mean, I think face-to-face contact matters a lot with that. If you're just going to contact a person through email and talk to them over the phone, I think it's really tough to build a real connection with that person.
Yeah.
But if you've taken the time to actually meet with a person, buy them coffee, they're going to be a lot more receptive to actually spending the time on you. That makes it worth it for not only you, but them as well, because they're not going to dish out their time if they don't see any kind of benefit to helping you.
And just see what the vibe of the person is like too, because I feel like sometimes people are like, I want to mentor anybody, but you really have to find the person that
Absolutely.
has that leadership in them and that wants to help and that, has that instinct. So I would say definitely find the right person for that before jumping into it.
Yeah.
What would be the best way to reply to a headhunter that's reached out to you?
For a headhunter, I would just say that, find out why they're interested in you mostly. I got a previous job through a headhunter, and he made it very clear that he looked on my LinkedIn page. They knew the experience that I had. They pointed it out in the initial email, and so it kind of made me know exactly why they were pursuing me.
Make sure, just do your research, make sure it's not shady,
Yeah.
I would say that.
And definitely you want to get the name out of the headhunter of who's actually making the hire so that so you can at least start looking up that person and get familiar with the company and who they are so that you aren't just flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, definitely. Any other questions? No, we're good?
All right.
All right, well, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to go on Adweek and look at our graduate guide. We've got tons of articles and videos and a quiz and everything. So thank you guys so much. Bye.